Inequality comes in many forms for people of color, both here and abroad, but race-related health disparities are among the starkest and most resistant to progress. Being a Black female further amplifies these inequities. Here are their stories.
He was like, oh, well, the test that I ran was for yeast infections. And I was like, okay, but why would you run a yeast infection test when I said that I thought it was this?
She came back in and I remember her literally like shrugging her shoulders and being like, well, it's a mystery. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm just gonna go home with this Tylenol.
Give me some ibuprofen, and it's like, okay, I guess. Like, I really just didn't know what to say, and I just left. I ended up pulling it out myself.
And I immediately began to feel like othered. When I would go to the doctor, I felt myself being rushed.
It's a round ligament pain. Everybody has it. It hurts. Deal with it.
If your labor takes too long, they will call it a failure to progress, or they'll call it an emergency and they'll have you have a C-section.
Respectability politics are rules for marginalized people to follow in order to earn respect in mainstream culture. We are expected to change ourselves in order to fit in and be taken seriously. Black women have a higher prevalence of heart disease, stroke, cancers, diabetes, maternal morbidities, obesity, and stress compared with U.S. women overall. Yet we are still seen as inferior and not taken proper care of in hospitals. We want to protect ourselves and each other and to maintain our dignity instead of being treated like we are inferior. If we are crying out for help and still do not get the proper help, what do we do then? If we are forced to change ourselves and still do not get the respect that respectability politics are supposed to afford us, what do we do then? Respectability politics kill.
The strong Black woman stereotype has been around for decades, and it was produced in order to combat tropes like the Mammy, the Jezebel, and the Sapphire. You can see the stereotype broadcasted in the media back then and today through television and music. With lots of research, many people are beginning to recognize the strong Black woman stereotype as the superwoman syndrome. As Alicia Keys once sang, even when I'm a mess, I still put on a vest with an S on my chest. Oh yes, I'm a superwoman. While there doesn't seem to be much harm in being strong, Black women suffer from poor sleeping habits, relationships, and diets. Black women tend to take on the stress from everyone around them and make it their own, leaving no room for self-care. High blood pressure, obesity, breast cancer, low birth rates, preterm delivery, and infant death are twice as high than anyone else's due to delayed health seeking. Part of the problem is that when Black women do seek medical attention, many health professionals still categorize Black women as being strong, which ultimately means they minimize health concerns and expect Black women to have higher pain tolerances than they actually do. Many times they are just given over-the-counter drugs like inflammatories instead of prescribed medication or treatment.
Of the angry Black woman in society is another thing that plagues Black women in healthcare. In society, Black women tend to be seen as more aggressive, loud, or dramatic than their counterparts, which in turn tends to lead them being viewed as much more angry, and this also leads to any disagreement that Black women bring up, voice, or concern is viewed as anger or aggression, whereas other races it will be seen as genuine emotion. So Black women aren't even able to express their genuine emotions on subjects without being viewed as angry, which ties into healthcare because Black women can't even express their pain or concern without being seen as disagreeable or angry. This also connects back to intersectionality because women just in general are seen as more emotional, having more emotional outbursts. So to add being a Black woman on top of that, the emotional outburst is seen as anger. Now moving along, we have a celebrity example. Serena Williams, a very famous, high-profile Black woman, was ignored on her concerns of blood clots at birth, despite them almost threatening her life while giving birth. This just goes to show that no matter how famous of a Black woman you are still a Black woman first and foremost, and your concerns will not be taken seriously as you are viewed as angry or not something to take serious.
Intersectionality. What is it? Intersectionality is how race, class, gender, and other individual characteristics intersect with one another and overlap. Discrimination that Black women experience in their lives is the double whammy of race and gender that may ultimately be the most significant factor in poor maternal outcomes. An expanding field of research shows that the stress of being a Black woman in American society can take a significant physical toll during pregnancy and childbirth. Black women experience various forms of racism, discrimination, and bias because of their race, gender, or class, among others. Furthermore, the systematic degradation of traditional birthwork delivered by midwives and doulas and the increased medicalization of childbirth over time has thrust Black women into a system of service delivery that is inherently biased against them, with childbirth being centered around being white, middle class, and female. Healthcare systems must acknowledge that Black women are not monolithic in their experiences and recognize the intersectionality of individual health decision-making in order to ensure access to high-quality, culturally relevant, and comprehensive healthcare services. 33% of Black women said that they had personally been discriminated against because of their race when going to a doctor or health clinic, and 21% said that they have avoided going to a doctor or seeking healthcare out of concern that they would be racially discriminated against. This is both sexism and racism combined.
You have to show proof that you have something wrong with you in order for you to get the medicine. I put forward and I maintain, if I was white, I wouldn't have to go through that.
Dr. Susan Moore was an African-American physician who developed COVID-19. That was the chilling and heartbreaking video she made before she died that documented her mistreatment. Disparities like this happen all the time to Black women in healthcare. Here are 4 actions we believe can help prevent them in the future. 1.
Increase representation in the presence of Black doctors so Black women have someone to relate to.
2. Put a stop to stereotypes. 3.
Have classes and trainings on racism, bias, and microaggressions for medical students.
4.
Spread the word about these injustices.